mucosal layers. What does it mean, sub?
Below.
Just under it. So just under the mucosa, you have submucosal layer, which consists of the connective tissue. You have a lot of blood vessels and nerves and things there. And then in all of these organs, after the submucosa, you have muscularis layer. What does it mean, muscularis? What do you have?
Muscles.
You have muscles, right? So in muscularis layer, in all of the organs, you have two layers. What is the inner layer?
Longitudinal.
What is the outer layer? Always, it always is the same. The only organ that you have three layers instead of two is which one? In stomach you have three layers. What is the innermost one?
Oblique,
The inner is the circular and the outer is the
Tricky.
So that's the
She's
same
tricky.
story, guys, for all of these organs. So you will look at the handout and you will find out that what are the parts that you are responsible for. This is the slide of the esophagus. The first layer of the esophagus, guys, is mucosa. This is mucosa where you have the epithelial tissue. What type of epithelial tissue you have in the esophagus?
Stratified squamous.
Stratified squamous epithelial tissue, right? And then you have the this is mucosa. This layer is mucosa. And then here you have the submucosa all the way. That's where you have the connective tissue with a lot of blood vessels. And here you cannot see the muscularis layer here. This is another picture which shows you the epithelial tissue, the stratified squamous epithelial tissue, which makes a mucosa. And here under it you have the submucosa. So in this slide that we have over there, that's a good slide of the esophagus. Make sure that you can find the epithelial tissue, which is the mucosa layer, submucosa, two layers of the muscularis, I mean the circular, which is inner, and the longitudinal, which is outer, and the serosa. Serosa in all of the organs, guys, is the outermost layer, which is the peritoneum. Nothing but the peritoneum, nothing complicated. Peritoneum, the visceral peritoneum, which covers this organ, is called serosa. So serosa is the outermost layer, which consists of the visceral peritoneum. The next slide that you have it under the microscope is called stomach. In the stomach, guys, again, the story is the same. It means that you have the lumen. This is the lumen. Just next to the lumen, this layer is called mucosa. All the way, we call it mucosa. In the mucosa, as you can see here, we have some glands. Can you see these glands? These glands are called gastric glands. And in the wall of the gastric glands, what type of the epithelial tissue you have? You know it come up with
Simple columnar.
Thank you. You have the simple columnar epithelial tissue here in the wall of the glands. So these are the glands, right? And between the glands, can you see the spaces between the glands, the whitish areas between the glands? These are called gastric pits. So these are the things that you have to know in the mucosa. First of all, you have to know that all the way this layer is mucosa. Here you have the gastric glands. In the gastric gland, you have simple columnar epithelium. And between the glands, the whitish spaces are called gastric pits. This is another picture. No, not from the stomach, from the duodenum. What is the duodenum?
The most
The first
inferior.
part, the first part of the small intestine is called duodenum. Let me show you the layers of the stomach here. So here it shows you all of the layers that you have in the stomach. This is the picture of the stomach with the lower magnification. So all the way here, guys, you have the mucosa. Here you can see the submucosa. Under it, you will have the three layers of the muscles, muscularis, and then you will have the serosa. And then in the mucosa, we are responsible to know the glands and the gastric pits and gastric glands. This is the duodenum. Duodenum is the first part of the small intestine. You guys know that this is the small intestine because you can see the finger-like structures here that we call them villi. And each of them is called villus. So each of these fingers is called villus. Why do you have the finger-like structures in the small intestine?
Help with movement.
For more surface area, for better absorption and also digestion, right? Like the other parts here, you can see that you have the epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue, like the stomach, here is the simple columnar. And then here you have the glands. This is the mucosa. And then under it, when you can see these round glands here, it's submucosa. Muscularis will be under it, and then you have the serosa. This is another picture of the small intestine. So for the small intestine, guys, don't worry that is this the duodenum or jejunum or ileum. I won't ask you to identify between the three parts of the small intestine. Just know it as the small intestine. And you have just one slide over there for the small intestine, right? Again, you guys know that this is the small intestine because how How do you know that this is the small intestine?
The villi.
Because you have the villi, you have the finger-like structures, right? And this is the mucosa, and then under it you have the submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. This is another picture again of the villus. So here is the big villus with a higher magnification. You can see that it consists of simple columnar epithelium here, and then here you have the submucosa. This is the submucosa. The large intestine or the colon is this picture here. You guys make sure that this is large intestine, not the small intestine, because you cannot see the villi, no villi, no villi, right? The other thing is that, can you see these cells, these whitish cells? These cells are called goblet cells, and goblet cells are responsible for secretion of the mucus. In the large intestine, unlike the small intestine, you have a lot of these goblet cells. So if you see the slide that in the mucosa, you can see a lot of goblet cells, and you cannot see the villus, the villi. You are looking at the large intestine slide. Look, here again it is the mucosa, where you have the glands and you have the epithelial tissue. This is the submucosa. You have the connective tissue. This is muscularis, and then just beneath it here, this is serosa. So for this is the higher magnification. Again, you can see the goblet cells. All of these whitish cells are the goblet cells. So for this part, I mean for the esophagus, for the stomach, small intestine and large intestine, make sure that you can distinguish the layers, and also you know the structures that you have in your handouts, right? In your lab manual for the histology part, on page 578, you have this slide of the esophagus. So very clearly you can see the layers here. And also for the
These are good pictures.
you have it on page 579. It's figure 34.1. Again, here you can see the small intestine, right? So I may use one of those pictures or the actual slide that we have there, make sure that you know both. And if I want to ask you about the layers, for example, for the esophagus, I may use this picture because it shows you the layers very good. So make sure that you know this. The next slide is the slide of the liver. The slide of the liver is very easy. You have it under the microscope, but I will not use that slide because that's not a very beautiful slide. I will use the picture for this one. What you have to know in the liver is that when you look inside the liver consists of the smaller parts that we call the lobes or lobules. And in the center of each lobule, you have the hole. Can you see this hole? This hole is called central vein. And from each central vein, you have the groups of the cells which come out. Can you see all of these pinkish cells? All of these pinkish cells which are radiating from the central vein are called hepatic cells. Hepatic cells because they belong to the liver, right? And between them, the spaces that you can see them in the white, all of these whitish spaces are called sinusoids. Sinusoids in the liver are filled with the blood. So these are the things that you have to know in the liver. In the liver, you have to know, let me make sure that yes, you have to know the lobule. This is the whole thing is the lobule. You can see that the lobules are separated by each other by the borders that you can see here. In the center, you have central veins. All of those cells are hepatocytes, and the spaces between them are called sinusoids. There's another picture which shows you one lobule here, there's one lobule here, another one here, another one here. Central vein, hepatocytes, and the spaces are called sinusoids. And pancreas, which is very easy, you are familiar with it from the endocrine system. In the pancreas, you have to know that the pancreas is the endocrine or exocrine?
It's both.
It's both. But majority of the pancreas is exocrine or endocrine?
Exocrine.
It's exocrine. So you have to know that these islets or islands that you have in the slide, and your lighter, these are the pancreatic islands, they are the endocrine parts. All of these pinkish purple parts that you can see here, these are called acini, and acini is the exocrine part. That's very easy. In the pancreas, you just have to know that the island here is the pancreatic islet, and all of these cells here are called acini, which are the exocrine part. So that was the histology of the digestive system. You have all of those slides. When you look at the slide, on this slide you have the name of each organ. So for the test, make sure that number one, you can identify the organs. I mean that you are able to tell me that this is the slide of the stomach, this is the slide of the small intestine, this is the slide of large intestine. And then make sure that you can identify the layers in the And we said that we have two major types of the digestion: mechanical, that is mechanically breaking down of the large molecules into the larger substances into smaller ones, and the chemical that we use the enzyme. So the activity that we have here, activity number 1 on page 588, that's to show you the effect of the enzyme in the chemical digestion. So you will have some crackers here, or we put some, could you just put a small part of the cracker? They are very picky about the crackers, they don't want them, that most of it, they need it for the other classes, so please consume, make sure that you take just a small part of it, and then you crush it. With this instrument, you crush it. So when you are crushing this, it means that you are doing the mechanical digestion, isn't it? So the part of the experiment is talking about comparison between non-crushed